Good afternoon, everybody. You're here for another comics chat. Today, the topic that Kara and I will be talking about is sci-fi comics, but really that's just a clever ruse for us to talk about Star Wars comics, which we've been wanting to do for a very, very long time.
As you can see, it's a topic very close to us.
Yeah, I was going to say. So the fun part for today is the fact that we could probably both do this entirely without notes. So I think Kara is going to get started. She is taking a Jedi side and I'm taking a Sith side. So I will pass it on to Kara to get started with the first Star Wars comic.
All right. So this comic it's just, the title is just Star Wars. So it's kind of like the main run that they do. And it's set right after A New Hope, or if you're a purist, Star Wars. And this is kind of, in my opinion, this is kind of like the best period to set a comic, because we've got Han, who's not really committed to the Rebel Alliance, and we're not really sure where his loyalties lie, or they're always getting questioned. We've got Luke, who is exploring the Force. And we've got Leia, who, her planet was just destroyed, so she's struggling with that. But she's also struggling with sort of like her leadership role within the Rebel Alliance. And then Vader has a very strong story arc throughout here as well. So this comic is kind of like about these more minor skirmishes and more of the character arcs, which is one of the things that makes it really enjoyable. And it starts with Han, Luke, and Leia. They are basically raiding a weapons factory that is owned by the Empire, and their plans kind of get sidelined when Vader shows up, and they have to deal with him. So it's a really great introduction to the dynamics of how things are after the destruction of the Death Star. And Vader also features kind of like as a main character in some of these. And his main motivation here is to find the pilot who kind of thwarted him after the Death Star. So that's his main arc in this one here. And it's just really fun if you loved the original trilogy and want to see more of Han, Luke, and Leia all working together or not working together very well, as the case may be. Lots of banter, and then of course there's the C-3PO and R2 and Chewbacca are all featured in here as well.
Well, and I love the canon and the extended universe for this time period, especially because with prequels, you had the whole Clone Wars cartoon that really filled the gaps between the movies. You had both the Genndy Tartakovsky hand-drawn and the 3D one. But the original trilogy, I mean, all you had was the terrible Christmas special to really bridge the gaps. And you even have them like alluding to the bounty hunter on Ord Mantell or whatever things in the movies that happen in between, and you just kind of take like, oh, that happened off screen. Thankfully, now you get this nice bridge in between. Especially given the reveal at the end of Empire, like, how did Vader figure it out? And blah, 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 the type of stuff that, when you're a kid and you're watching, you don't think about. But
as an adult, you have lots of questions about how they got from one place to another. And one of the other really great things about this, too, is if you aren't a fan of the fact that Disney acquired Star Wars and are going off and making these like other, movies, you can still enjoy sort of like the magic of the original trilogy as well, and get new stories.
Right, and so that ties directly into the one that I am going to talk about, which is the Darth Vader comic. This one is written by Kieran Gillen. I did not plan that. I did not plan that my favorite comic author would be doing the Star Wars comic I chose. I just wanted to, I like anything that explores more about Vader, because the way that he's used in the original trilogy, he's metaphor. He's just the suit and the lightsaber and the imposing and the voice, and you don't really, you get it in the prequels, you get the character development there, but I really like that was my favorite part of Rogue One, was you got to see what a threat he was. You got to see him really just like the most terrifying presence in the entire universe, minus maybe the Emperor. And what I love about this comic is you see them. The main conflict is between the Emperor and Vader. Vader's quest to find out who that pilot that destroyed the Death Star was is almost like a minor through line of this. It really is. Vader's continuing to get stronger as he purges more of the Jedi, and so the Emperor has to keep him in check even more because, of course, that's the rule of two with the Sith. There's always a master and an apprentice, and if you let the apprentice get too strong, then they become the master, and that cycle continues. But of course, we know Emperor Palpatine has been Darth Sidious for an extremely long time. The panel that I have presented right now, this is just me wanting to have Boba Fett on there. He does not disintegrate somebody in this comic. I thought that would be a big plot hole that they would tie up in some of these, but drat.
Sometimes though, it's nicer to have that sort of like that mystery of like, what really happened?
Yeah, what job did he take where he accidentally disintegrated somebody, and why didn't Vader him after that? Because that's the thing, is that every time you meet somebody that Vader talks to, he pretty much kills them or force chokes them until they submit. And apparently Boba Fett has managed to get away with it every time. So
I think that's one of the reasons we like Boba Fett so much. The other thing that I would say about this too is that if you're going to read like any Star Wars comics at all, I think the Vader comics would be the ones to do for all of the reasons that Alexander said. He is the strongest and most intriguing character. And it's so interesting too that he is we still feel that way about him, despite like everything we know now about his past. He's still such a compelling character after everything. And
it's the other thing that I always like about the Vader comics, but really anytime they explore the Sith side of things, is that the movies only really talk about the light side of the Force. Or at least that's really the only stuff you spend a lot of time with. You don't actually spend a lot of time exploring how the dark side works. And this comic even goes through a little bit of like gray area between the two. And the extended universe for me personally is always at its best when it's exploring all the lines between what separates Jedi and Sith. And this one always does an excellent job at that. Extremely well written. I really can't talk more about the plot because even though the movies have been out for decades, there's spoiler stuff in here. I'd rather let you guys read it and figure it out. This is on Overdrive. You can check it out very easily. Totally worth your time.
Definitely. And then is this the same run in which Dr. Aphra first shows up?
Yep. She's right in Act 2 of this comic.
Yeah. And she's a new character that I think she shows up first in this one, and then she ends up with her own comic run as well. And I think she's another one of those, one of the strongest Star Wars comic characters out there right now as well. All right. Moving on to some other space-related comics. This is a brand new comic this year. It's a 2020. And it's more of a teen comic called The School for Extraterrestrial Girls. Basically, the idea here is Tara Smith. She is narrating this whole thing, and she tells us in the beginning that her dad really gets her into these routines. Like, that's how she gets through the day. She's got all these allergies and all these other things that distract her. So she really needs to have these routines. And kind of when one day her routine breaks up and she has a meltdown, almost literally, because she catches fire and discovers that she's actually an alien. And because of that, the government kind of finds her and they send her to this school for extraterrestrial girls. At the same time, she discovers that her parents maybe weren't really her parents. and she's dealing with that, as well as this whole array of like new this new world that she's walked into, as well as like these different kinds of, as you can see on the cover, these different kinds of aliens from all over the galaxy. So this takes place on Earth. It's not actually in space, but of course it's implied here that there are space relations because there are so many different aliens here. And there's a lot going on in this comic. So the aliens have these bracelets that they have to wear to appear normal. And the way they choose to appear is very diverse. And then there's also the major conflict that goes on here is Tara figuring out how to make friends, and then, you know, her background coming into conflict with those different friends. One of the friends that she makes, she finds out that people from her race almost pretty much exterminated people from her friend's race. So that's something that they have to deal with. And then, of course, the background with her parents. One thing, too, about this that I really liked is it's almost, there's only one male character in this entire story, and it's Tara's dad, and he doesn't really make an appearance very much at all. He's more of a generic kind of character. So I thought that was a really neat thing as well.
Sounds very X-Men to me. Ensemble, cast, various powers, discovering origins.
Yeah, I definitely think there is an element to that. And I think X-Men was maybe one of those first, you know, like magic school type scenarios.
Did it well before anyone else. There is an excellent run that came out this past decade that is an almost entirely woman cast for X-Men as well. So it's like Rogue, Storm, Jubilee, Shadowcat. It's rad. It's really good.
Yeah. And X-Men is another one that sometimes takes place in space.
Mm-hmm. All right. So then now we are talking about Space Dumplings. Unfortunately, this one is not available digitally, much to my chagrin, but it is available in print. I highly suggest you check this one out. It is aimed at kids, but you may recognize that name, Craig Thompson. He created a comic called Blankets that was long and excellent. And then he also created Habibi, which was also long and excellent. Both are just incredible literary comics. Blankets, it's kind of a memoir. But this one is a space one. Violet and her parents mine space whale poop. Not even joking. Apparently it is a very rich energy source, kind of like in Futurama, how the dark matter is actually like Nibbler's poop that they use for starship fuel. Apparently it's quite lucrative, but you'll notice she's got two best friends. One's a genetically engineered chicken and the other's an alien. And her dad gets swallowed by a giant space whale. And so she has to go out on her own and save him. It's not a wholly original arc. You see a lot of this in kids comics, especially kids sci-fi comics. They keep the actual like arc itself relatively simple. What this one does better than anyone else is the coloring and the art in this is just superb. It is extremely dynamic. The other thing that I really like, especially for kids, so if you've got reluctant readers, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, this is long. And sometimes a long graphic novel, we know as grown-ups, takes a lot less time to read. For kids, that's the confidence that they need to then tackle a 300-page text-based book. Sometimes they finish something this thick, and even though you know it was a graphic novel, it didn't take up a whole lot of time. In their brain, it's different. And this has been one that I've been suggesting since I was at the bookstore for kids, especially if they're reading graphic novels because they are having trouble reading and focusing on textbooks themselves. This one is a very good bridge. It's got multiple subplots, very good characterization. The dad is a fantastic character. The mom's a fantastic character. It's got personality out the wazoo. And it really spends time with everyone. Again, this is like Vader. I don't want to spoil too much, but if you really need to sell it to a kid, space whale poop.
Awesome. That sounds really interesting. And I definitely agree that long comics great for kids.
Yep.
Especially if they're engaging.
Yep. Anything to build that confidence, because then Percy Jackson does not look intimidating at all.
Right. And
All
then
right.
it's from there,
Yep.
sky's the limit. Yeah.
Basically. So I think that pretty much sums it up. Once as always, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to check these out. Leave comments if you are reading anything particularly good that you feel like we should read ourselves. We're always looking for new suggestions.
For sure.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everyone. See you next
Bye,
time.
dudes.